Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have William Carbone with us today. William is CEO and co-founder at Evalify. It's a pretty cool platform. I'm on their website right now, and they help navigating risk, unleashing the potential Evalify effect, which is basically you pay for $250 for a one-time analysis, a preliminary freedom to operate assessment. So we're gonna discuss more about that. Will is a pianist. He's an ex-IBM, and he does a bunch of things. He did yoga this weekend, so we're gonna discuss about his routine and how his brain works nowadays, his objectives, everything in between. This podcast is brought to you by podpair.com. If you want to start or scale a podcast, go to podpair.com. We help you monetize podcasts. It is also brought to you by Qualia. I need one of those right now. It helps with focus, memory, and drive for busy entrepreneurs like myself. Well, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Oh, thank you, Charles. It's a great pleasure being here today, given all the caliber of other people who came before me in this podcast. I'm William, currently live in Portugal and the CEO and co-founder of a company called Evalify, which is part of a venture studio called Nobody Studios, with the mission of building 100 companies in 5 years.
Right. And nowadays, what's your focus as a CEO? What are your top objectives?
Well, many. Being a founder and a co-founder, and we are trying to disrupt and revolutionize the way that investors look at their deals, specifically at their startups, starting from a pitch deck, but from the point of view of intellectual property, particularly patents.
Right. And what led you to this? Because you spent 10 years at IBM and at a bunch of other companies. What led you to identify that problem?
That's been a long journey. Basically, when I was at IBM, it's a company that is definitely known for the number of patents. It's been like 27 or 28 years of patent predominance. Like they filed around 9,000 patents per year. So they got a lot of awards, even from the US PTO and government for the numbers of patents that IBM filed. And I happen to be one of the inventors of one of those patents. Like we actually had several patents that my co-founder Nick and I filed together. Actually, he's a senior inventor that I met at IBM in my role of chairman of the Technical Experts Council. And together, actually, our journey started with Patent Talk. And we started to think about given his background in inventions and being a serial inventor, he was like, telling me how fun it can be. So a few years later, we found out we could actually create a business around that. And we created a company in Finland called The Edges and Possible. And the company actually aimed at looking at patents from a different point of view with the eyes of a data scientist. This means in this long journey of being patents producers, I'm actually a little inventor. I didn't patent that many inventions, but Nick did. And the idea was, how can we improve the process of accelerated discovery? So how can we make the process better for inventors and make sure that a company doesn't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in order to find a new invention? So how can we find this needle in the haystack with a specific methodology, or with things that are like semantic search and so on? And we actually, the methodology was quite successful. So we've been working with corporations and even startups and different organizations, and we help them to explore what else they could do with their IP, or even with their ideas. So where else their IP could be repurposed in different industries. And that type of methodology, being successful, then attracted the interest of a venture studio called Nobody Studios that I just mentioned. And guess what? Their idea was to build 100 companies in 5 years. So these companies might have needed some IP help, and looked like that our methodology could come to be quite helpful in their mission. So we joined Nobody Studios, and little did we know that we also would make a company together called Tivalify. And what Tivalify does, in our case, we actually verticalized all what we learned from our methodology from the previous company into a software that can help investors to make better decisions given a pitch deck or on a startup with data points that they will not necessarily have if they will not call a lawyer or a patent firm to help with that. So we gave the opportunity both to investors and to founders to have a look at that in like 10 minutes time or 15 minutes time. You just put a pitch deck, we scan the technical features that we extract from the pitch deck against 200 million patents in 170 countries and worldwide, and then you basically get a freedom to operate analysis with a score and also the competitors list and so on. And we're particularly proud of that because there is no other solution in the market apart from manual work and really expensive um, lawyers' hours for you, which it's not a problem, but just like it's not efficient and takes a lot of money and time, and it's not available 24/7 like the tool is. And on top of that, we wanted to move the needle from the Series A type of due diligence, at least from the IP side, that is, some startups and investors wake up later on saying, oh, we have a trouble now with infringement, and move that needle earlier in the stage. So we are focusing on early stage startups and bringing that awareness early enough in the process. It's highly, highly beneficial to founders and to investors. And why is because they can actually pivot on time, and then also can decide, okay, we're not so innovative as we thought we were. Somebody else has done this and somebody else has failed. And maybe there is a corporation owning patent in that space. And just to, in a nutshell, like the startups don't need to have a patent. So it's so easy, like you just can start from a business idea to move ahead.
Right. Yeah, that was my question. Do you feel like patents are still important in this day and age? For example, I saw two companies on your website, Jawbone, definitely important in that case, in my opinion, because it's a physical product. But with Uber, do they still need to protect their IP? Is this even enforceable, like their algorithms, or can their moat be the fact that their algorithm is so good and it's used by so many customers that no one is gonna bother them?
Hmm. No, it's a good point. So why the reason was that Jawbone and Uber in this case had one had a low score, so it had a lot of infringement risk back then, and Uber had like a high score. This meant that their infringement risk was very low. And we can use that as a lesson on the way that patents can also be an indicator, a data point on how many players are there in the market, who else is doing that type of technology. And so on one hand, you can also hope that no one will ever stop you or prevent you from using or copying their technology. But as soon as, of course, as you grow as a company, then you're gonna be for sure under the radar of big players, especially if these big players own a patent in that space. And what happened to Jawbone, it was a company that worked on home speakers and Bluetooth speakers and so on. And they have raised around $900 million. So this is nearly $1 billion, and that's not valuation, that's a real cash in the bank. And they decided with a lot of confidence that their solution, with that type of knowledge they had, they would be successful in the wearables market. And little did they know that in the wearables market didn't work the same way of their current market. And so what we saw from the IP point of view, from the patent point of view, it was a highly crowded market with companies like Fitbit, like Garmin, and even Apple. And if they ran this analysis back then, like we did, they would be aware of at least about the players. But of course, the IP is not the only part, right? This is just like an additional data point. We have, the team, the execution, the creativity. These are all parts that come together when a company can be successful or not. So we're not saying that the IP is our golden hammer and everything goes according to IP. However, can help you out to have different view and different lens on the world, especially the complex world of startups, and especially if you're involved with technology, that is not so known nowadays. The IP information can help you navigate in that space. And then companies like Uber, they were first one, to have the type of algorithms, and so they were pretty much pioneers in the space. And of course, I suppose then later on they protected that their patents and their ideas. And for what we saw, like at least from their pitch decks, they were pretty innovative. And the same happens with other investors who want to try their entire portfolio. So we have something like really interesting and for the investors. We do have a kind of patent time machine. So the reason why we were able to understand what happened to Jawbone, what happened to Uber back in 2008 is because our patent time machine with database basically lets you to assess your portfolio of startups back when you made the investment. So if I want to assess what was the state of the art of patents back 3 years ago, I can do that with our database. Otherwise, if I would run to today's date, the startup might have already filed for a patent and they would infringe on their own patent. Like they would have an analysis that is not so advanced. But beyond that, it's actually important. We get that question asked a lot from investors, like, can we actually see if we made a really good decision on this startup? Or why this startup is not going well? Maybe the market was already populated and we didn't know. And we found out only on the Series A stage.
Right. How do you acquire your clients? What's your GTM strategy nowadays?
So far, it's been word of mouth, and being part of the studio, we are in contact with a lot of investors, and Evalify became to be quite popular. And of course, now we're running a safe note, for it's 500K, and we are looking for more investment so that we can focus on enlarging that part, especially the marketing side. And then we're going for a 3 million seed round, and should be like close this year. And they just like to give a bridge to the seed round, So we are using the safe note to continue in that direction. So our go-to-market is basically approaching large VCs who run a lot of startup pitch decks. We're talking about 3,000 to 5,000 pitch decks per year and above, and they have very low information about the startup. Maybe they only met the founder, or they like what the founder wrote in that email, but there is no way to know more about the company. And they would just send this one to their business analyst or associate, and this person would basically run a full analysis on them. But no one would, in the early stage, would ever talk to a lawyer because it's simply too expensive. There is no tool for investors. So our go-to-market is basically, we have people in the business as well from the studio, and our own business director, myself, and many more people in our team. And we basically approach these large VCs, but also startups and smaller VC firms and investors, which by the way include also angel investors who just want to know more about their startups and upcoming investments. And so far, the word of mouth has served us quite well. We had a robust user base, and we launched the product in February. We are almost hitting 100 users, and we are still figuring it out, like what is the subscription plan, because for now it's just like a one-time report, and you basically can buy multiple reports and run different analysis. But we're looking towards a more like resonating business model for a startup, SaaS startup at least. It is a subscription model.
And tell me about Nobody Studios. Seems to be quite the interesting organization there. So what's the deal with them? Like, what percentage do they own of your company, and what do they provide in exchange?
Right, so I can't disclose that information, but they usually the Nobody Studios usually provides the startups. There is a process called progressive, so frugal and aggressive. So as soon as you knock the door of the studio, then you go from the ideation phase, then you go to the concept, launch, scale, and optimize. So each of these phases are meant to test each idea and understand with the experts in the studio. We're talking about all possible verticals, from technology, marketing, and branding, and startup success gurus into from the idea to shape it around what could be reasoning for that specific startup. And the beauty is that you're not just alone as a founder, right? There is like a leadership team, there are investors who are advisors, and there are like top people in the industry that can help you out with that. And of course, the studio provides resources. That's why it's a venture studio, it's not just a venture capital firm. It's because the studio provides the resources and efforts to help each startup to flourish. And if you think about creating 100 companies, impactful companies within 5 years, this is like it's a grand challenge, right? We actually guide the startups from the initial idea stage to an MVP and full validation in the market. So you can basically go into a more it can be an exit, it can be an M&A. You can decide to go for a Series A investment, but you get the basics around that. So unlike the traditional accelerators that support the startups, the Nobody Studios, we act like a launch pad. So we source and develop ideas internally, and then build the companies around these ideas with a team of experts. In a nutshell.
What important pieces of data can you find in the patent as an everyday founder? Can we find interesting edges in there? What data can I find in there as a founder that can put me on advantageous grounds as a founder?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like that. I can actually share the screen so that I can show live that part live if you don't mind. Let's see, where is that? Okay, here we go. Let me know if it's visible. Yeah, we're good. So basically, you would this is like an analysis we ran like some time ago, and as a founder, you would and an investor, by the way, that part is meant to be for investors. It means that you have a yes or no decision right away on what happens on your pitch deck or your startup. So basically, imagine you have just uploaded your pitch deck, and 10 minutes later or less, you get this. And as a founder, why this is important? We spoke before about the uploading the pitch deck, but also extracting the technical features. And here is where the technical features that were extracted from that pitch deck are. This means that you get a risk probability for each of those features, and you maybe as a founder will not even know how deep this went. And so in order to help a founder or an investor knowing more about if that feature is eligible, let's say, to the process, we provided them with overlapping with the existing technology. Then you have like risk probability rationale, so that the tool also explains why we have selected that. And then we give them the list of patents with the claims. So they don't even need to go away from the platform. They can simply have a look here and understand more about that technical feature. And you also will notice here there is a semantic relevancy. This is basically when the tool goes against each technical feature and each patent, and how close that patent is with what that startup is trying to do, right? And if, let's say, you have a corporation owning this patent in the space, and it's a granted patent, like in this case, and your risk probability is moderate to high, it's a kind of no-go. So if you're a founder, as you ask for a founder side, I will go here and study this patent and see why the tool, these patents, by the way, and study why the tool has told me, okay, that's a no-go direction. Like, pay attention to this part. While on this side, this feature seems to be quite innovative. So as a founder or an investor, you would say, okay, let's maybe focus on this part. Seems to be a new model, a new market for the company. Even the patent database will tell you there are not so many incumbents there or competitors in there, and we believe it's a low risk. But the beauty of that also, you can do that with each and every of these technical features. The beauty comes when you have patent competitors and players. So we divided them in between individuals, companies, and corporations. So it's a way that the tool helps you and gives you opportunity to understand data that you will not be able to access. So you can't get this type of data only by Googling them, right? Or doing your competitor analysis. This is a thorough competitor analysis done from the lens of IP. And then we also give you on top of that each link to the patents. And this is actually public data, right? So you can simply go, let's say, on this patent and look at it. I need to say that we don't use Google Patents as database. We have our own curated part, but we made available for investors and founders, let's say, to go and dig deeper on each patent with this opportunity, right? And then, of course, if you have an abandoned patent, means that you can simply have no risk, and you could potentially use this technology for your own good, and you don't need to pay licenses to that client, to that company. But at the same time, you, as an inventor, as a founder, you would also challenge why these patents have been abandoned. Was there already something that didn't go well, like the market wasn't ready? Like, you can learn so much from this. So there is a lot of opportunities and conversations between founders and investors in this process, so that they can basically get more even excited about their idea, but also they can challenge their idea. They will think, oh, you're not so innovative as you thought you are. And it actually gives the opportunity for that type of conversation that before wasn't available. And we are positioning Valify as, of course, not as one of the Microsoft Office tools, like that you pay $990 per year and you have a license, but that's like a must-have tool if you are assessing, especially early stage startups, and if you're an investor that doesn't want to only rely on gut feeling, which is always good, but you want to make sure that nowadays, with an increasing number of patents worldwide, we are seeing things like never before. You want to make sure that you're not, first of all, infringing on anyone, but also you want to make sure that somebody else is not already doing what this company is doing or your startup is doing.
Love it. Well, thanks for the full presentation. Will, where can people find out more about you and the company?
Oh, you can just go to evalify.ai and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm sure we can share the links here.